Now that we have WordPress installed and ready to roll, I think it's high time that we take a tour of this back-end administration area. So to get into your administration area, of course, on a hosted account, make sure you go to your domain name, .com or .net or whatever that might be, /WP-admin, just like this. And that will bring you to the login screen, of course, and you can add in your username and your password to log into your account. Now, if you're running an account on WordPress.com, it's slightly different. Just go to WordPress.com. And then you may have to log in. And then once logged in, just head up to My Account and then click on Global Dashboard from the drop-down menu that appears. And that will bring you into the dashboard or the administration backend for your account on WordPress.com. As you can see, the URL is very similar here on WordPress.com. Okay, great. So hopefully all good. Now, what I'm going to do from this point forward is I'm going to work with my self-hosted or self-installed version of WordPress. So if you're running a free WordPress.com account, that's awesome. A lot of what we talk about will definitely apply. But what I want to do is I want to start focusing in and zeroing in on working with a self-hosted account. So as a matter of fact, this additional tab here that I have open in my browser, I'm just going to go ahead and close him. Okay, great. Now, the first area that I want to tour here inside the interface is this gray bar that runs right across the top of the WordPress admin interface. And as you can see over in the left-hand side, we have the name of our blog and then also visit site. Clicking on either of those would open up the, I guess what I could call the front end of your blog, if that makes sense. Whatever the visitor would see on their side, right? The actual blog itself. So you can click on either of those to get a preview of the work that you're doing here in the WordPress backend. And then way over onto the right-hand side, we have sort of this quick menu here. We have New Post. Clicking on that would allow us to create a new WordPress post, which we'll definitely get into in just a little while. There's also this drop-down menu, so I can view my drafts. I can create a new page. I can upload content, or I can view my comments. All items that we'll be getting to in due time here. Okay, great. What else do we have? Well, it says Howdy Jeff, so that's my username there. I can click on my username and go and edit my profile. I have this turbo option, and then finally I can log out. And I would recommend that, especially with a self-hosted account here, whenever you're finished, maybe you're writing a new post or maybe you're uploading some content, whenever you're done, whatever it is that you're working on for that session, I would suggest that you click on log out rather than just closing your browser tab. Now that we have WordPress installed and ready to roll, I think it's high time that we take a tour of this back-end administration area. So to get into your administration area, of course, on a hosted account, make sure you go to your domain name, .com or .net or whatever that might be, /WP-admin, just like this. And that will bring you to the login screen, of course, and you can add in your username and your password to log into your account. Now, if you're running an account on WordPress.com, it's slightly different. Just go to WordPress.com. And then you may have to log in. And then once logged in, just head up to My Account and then click on Global Dashboard from the drop-down menu that appears. And that will bring you into the dashboard or the administration backend for your account on WordPress.com. As you can see, the URL is very similar here on WordPress.com. Okay, great. So hopefully all good. Now, what I'm going to do from this point forward is I'm going to work with my self-hosted or self-installed version of WordPress. So if you're running a free WordPress.com account, that's awesome. A lot of what we talk about will definitely apply. But what I want to do is I want to start focusing in and zeroing in on working with a self-hosted account. So as a matter of fact, this additional tab here that I have open in my browser, I'm just going to go ahead and close him. Okay, great. Now, the first area that I want to tour here inside the interface is this gray bar that runs right across the top of the WordPress admin interface. And as you can see over in the left-hand side, we have the name of our blog and then also visit site. Clicking on either of those would open up the, I guess what I could call the front end of your blog, if that makes sense. Whatever the visitor would see on their side, right? The actual blog itself. So you can click on either of those to get a preview of the work that you're doing here in the WordPress backend. And then way over onto the right-hand side, we have sort of this quick menu here. We have new post. Clicking on that would allow us to create a new WordPress post, which we'll definitely get into in just a little while. There's also this drop-down menu, so I can view my drafts. I can create a new page. I can upload content, or I can view my comments. All items that we'll be getting to in due time here. Okay, great. What else do we have? Well, it says Howdy Jeff, so that's my username there. I can click on my username and go and edit my profile. I have this turbo option, and then finally I can log out. And I would recommend that, especially with a self-hosted account here, whenever you're finished, maybe you're writing a new post or maybe you're uploading some content, whenever you're done, whatever it is that you're working on for that session, I would suggest that you click on log out rather than just closing your browser tab. The other thing that I want to take a look at here is our main dashboard view. So you may have to click on dashboard here over on the top left of this navigation menu that appears here on the left-hand side. So just make sure you're on dashboard. Inside the dashboard, we have a whole bunch of areas here, workable areas that are referred to as modules. And as you can see, there's all kinds of modules. We have right now, and we have quick press, recent comments, and you can continue scrolling down to view all of these different modules. So let's take a quick look at each of these modules here inside our dashboard. So first of all, we have right now. I'm going to work my way down the left-hand column here first, by the way. Now, the right now module tells you what's happening right now on your blog. So for example, because I have a fresh installation of WordPress, I have one default post, I have one default page, and one default category, which comes with that sort of that vanilla installation of WordPress. I also have one comment and one approved comment. And I have my theme here. It's telling me I have my WordPress default theme. Now we'll talk about themes and we'll talk about widgets in just a little while. And it also tells me what version of WordPress I'm presently running, 2.8.6, and it's suggesting that I update to version 2.9.1. Okay, so that's the right now module. What else do we have? Well, if I scroll down a little bit, we also have the recent comments module. And again, this is sort of the default vanilla comment here in the fresh installation of WordPress, just so we have some content on our blog that we can actually see. So someone named Mr. WordPress created a comment here for us. And here inside this recent comments module, I can unapprove it, I can edit it, I can reply, mark it as spam, delete, and so on. So hopefully all good. So whenever your posts begin getting comments on them, you can see those comments inside this recent comments module. Okay, so hopefully all good. Now, next up, we have incoming links. And you can read through this if you want here. This dashboard widget, or this module, queries the Google blog search so that when another blog links to your site, it will show up here. It hasn't found any incoming links yet. That's okay. There's no rush. So there's no inbound links or incoming links from other blogs to your blog. But again, as you start building up your content and building up your blog and your online community, you'll see this incoming links module start to populate with content. Okay, Now below that we have a plugins module, and we'll talk about plugins in quite some time, I think. What plugins will let you do is essentially expand and customize the possibilities here inside WordPress. And we have a few default plugins that are already set up, and then we have most popular, newest, and recently updated plugins. Okay, so hopefully so far so good. Now back up to the top of the dashboard, over to the right hand side now, we have the Quick Press module, which you might want to use. This is a quick way to create a new post for your blog. So you could click on the New Post button up at the top of the dashboard, or you could just head into the Quick Press module. Essentially, they both do the same thing. Okay, I'm just going to scroll down a little bit here. Recent drafts, any posts that I've saved as drafts and not actually published to my blog would show up here. And then last but not least, we have the WordPress development blog module, and we also have the other WordPress news module. So if anything's sort of happening inside the WordPress community in terms of their development blog or in terms of any news or updates, I'm going to see those two items inside these last two modules. Again, the WordPress development blog and the other WordPress news blog. So whenever I log into my actual WordPress account, I'll take a quick glance at those two, and if there's anything interesting or exciting, I might click on the links to see what's actually happening. Hopefully this has served as a decent introduction to working inside the administration backend of your WordPress blog. Now there's even more that I want to show you inside this dashboard interface for your blog. What I want to show you first here is back on the topic of our modules here, which we just discussed, the Right Now and the Quick Press and all the others that we see in this interface. We actually have some customization options that I want to show you here. First of all, what I can do, and you may have noticed this, is whenever you hover over top of one of your module's titles, you'll notice this very faint drop-down arrow appearing on the right-hand side of the module. Go ahead and click on that, and you can actually collapse down these modules. So if you want, you can actually have all of your modules collapsed, maybe something like this. Maybe you want a slightly cleaner looking dashboard. Perhaps. It's entirely up to you. And then of course, if you wanted to go and expand these guys, all you would do is just click on that drop-down arrow once again. That's really all there is to it. In fact, you can click right on the titles of the modules if you want, rather than clicking on that drop-down arrow to expand and collapse these different modules. Okay, wonderful. Now, what else can you do with your modules? Well, as it turns out, you can do quite a bit. What I could do, for example, is maybe this Quick Press module, maybe I don't want to have him sitting on the top right of my dashboard. Maybe I want to have him sitting over on the top left of the dashboard interface. Well, what I'll do is I'll take this Quick Press title bar here, I'll click on it and drag. Now notice this dotted frame here shows up as soon as I drag him over to the left. And when I see that dotted frame, if I let go of my mouse, that essentially reorganizes my modules, my dashboard interface. And then, for example, maybe I'll take the Right Now module and I'll drag him up to the top left, something like this. So you can quite easily drag to rearrange your entire dashboard interface, something like this, right? Maybe I'll take my incoming links and move him over to the left, and then maybe recent drafts I'll move underneath my Quick Press module, something like this. You can go nuts and essentially set all of this up exactly the way you want. So have fun with that. Maybe spend a moment goofing around with that. Now, in addition to customizing and reorganizing your dashboard and so on, you can go even further if you wish. You may have eyeballed this already, but up towards the top right of your interface, we have this Screen Options dropdown. And if I click on that, I get this expandable sort of top area here, and I can decide what modules I want to show on my dashboard. So maybe, for example, I don't want to see incoming links, and I'm not interested in that WordPress development blog or the WordPress news, and maybe I don't want to see recent drafts either, something like this. And then I'll just click on this Screen Options button once again, and what that will do is essentially reset that entire dashboard. So now those modules that I had unchecked, the WordPress development blog and the WordPress news and so on, they're gone, right? But what's interesting to note is that I can always go back to screen options and I can always turn these modules back on. For example, it's a really good idea to keep your other WordPress news and your WordPress development blog modules turned on, right? As a matter of fact, I'll turn everything on here and I'll collapse this down again, and of course everything is back. There's my 2 WordPress related modules there and the incoming links there, which I had also turned off. Now, what's interesting to note as well, back in this screen options area, is I can also set the number of columns. The default is 2. Maybe you want to bring that up to 3, or maybe reduce it down to 1, something like this. I'll collapse this back down. There we are, something like this, right? So, again, you've got a lot of different customization options here. I'm going to go back to the default, though, here, 2 columns. So, you can essentially set this up however you want. Now, I'm going to have to do some rearranging here inside my dashboard, but I think you get the idea. So as you can see, I've restored my dashboard back to the default view there. How did I do that? Well, I just had to drag around those modules and put them all back where they originally were. Now, the next thing that I'd like to do is I want to start touring through the different screens, the different interfaces that we have here in this administration backend. And I'm essentially going to make my way down the left-hand navigation menu. And I'm going to start off with posts. So go ahead and click on posts there on the left-hand side. And what that will do is that'll bring you into this edit posts screen, this edit posts view. So in other words, clicking on posts here on the left brings you into this first sub-item edit, and this is what we see. Okay, so what do we have here? There's lots to look at. Well, don't forget, the vanilla plain default installation of WordPress comes with a default post called Hello World. That's the title of the post. And I can see the post here inside this Edit Post screen. And as you can see here, when I hover over top of Edit World, I get some additional links below it. I can edit this post. We have a quick edit option. I can delete it. And I can also view it. That's the idea there. The author is myself, or on your side, it would be yourself. It's uncategorized. There are no tags assigned to this post. I can see that there's 1 comment on this post. And I can also see the publication date, the 10th of February, 2010, and the status of this post. It's currently published. In other words, it's currently live, right? Hope that makes sense for you. So it just kind of gives you sort of an overall view of all of your posts. And again, as we start adding in more and more posts, we'll get this huge list of posts all the way down the screen. Now, you can use this current view if you like to look at your posts, but we have 2 different view options here over on the right. We have the list view and we have the excerpt view. If I click on excerpt here, that'll just change our view to this mode here, and now we get a little bit of almost like a preview of our post. The first few words or the first sentence or 2 out of our post. That's this excerpt view. That's this button here. Or if you want, you can go back to the default list view, which is usually what I use myself anyway. Now, in addition to that, we have some bulk actions. So for example, I could check a post or several posts, and then up towards the top here we have some actions. So bulk actions. I could edit multiple posts, or I could delete multiple posts if I wanted to. Now, I'm not going to do anything here. I more just want to make you aware of this at this point. And over towards the right, you see that we have some filtering options, show all dates and view all categories as well. And again, once we start getting more posts into our blog, you'll see how all of this works. Now, over on the left-hand side, underneath posts, of course, we're inside our edit view right now. I'm going to go and click on add new. So whenever I want to go and create a new post, I can simply head to posts on the left and then click on add new, and that brings me into this view here, this add new post screen. And I'm not going to detail everything inside this view right now. You and I are going to be spending some time creating some new posts, but here I have an editable area here where I can type in some content or insert some media if I wish. And below that, I have some additional options like an excerpt, for example, trackbacks, custom fields, and so on. And then up towards the right, we have our publishing settings. And again, we'll get into this in more detail as we go along. Now, over on the left-hand side now, I'm going to click on Post Tags. And that, of course, is going to bring me into the Tags view. And what we can do here is we can add in additional tags for our posts if we want. And then finally below that, we have categories. And what we can begin doing with our blog is we can begin setting up categories. For example, maybe I'm going to create a blog on software, and I might create some categories based on the software categories. For example, print design, web design, desktop publishing, photo manipulation, you know, this sort of thing. And then as I start creating my blog posts, I can categorize them underneath the appropriate category. So anyway, that's the idea there, and hopefully this has given you a decent tour of the posts submenu here inside the WordPress admin area. Let's continue our tour of the administration backend here inside WordPress. And the next thing that I'm going to show you is something called the media library. And admittedly, at this point, there isn't a whole lot to see inside the media library. But once again, as soon as we start adding more content, you'll see more and more material appear inside your media library. So over on the left-hand menu there, look for Media. Go ahead and click on that fella. And that will bring up your media library. Now, your media library is going to hold all of your media content, as the name implies. So that means things like graphics and videos and audio files and all that good stuff, right? And as you can see here, mine is saying no media attachments found. Well, that's all right. You and I will add some of this material in just a little while. In addition to opening up the media library there, once again, when you click on media there in the left-hand menu, it brings you into this first menu item there, library. And then what I could do as well is I could click on add new. So go ahead and click on add new just for a second here, and I'll show you this here. Here's where we can come to upload new content, new media files. So what I could do here is where it says choose files to upload, I could simply click on select files, and that will bring me into a select dialog box that would allow me to open up some content. I'm just going to cancel that out though. That's one way to upload files. Or what I can do is I can use the browser-based upload. Let's take a quick look at this guy. So go ahead and click on Browser Uploader. That brings you here, and then I can click on Browse and, of course, go and find the files that I'm after. So really, both uploaders achieve the same end result. But again, I want to kind of keep this lesson, anyway, very brief because obviously we don't have a whole lot to look at just yet. But as I say, in a little while, we'll get some media content uploaded into our media library. Next up, let's take a look at the links category or the links panel. So just look for links there over on the left-hand side. Go ahead and click on that fella and that'll open up the links panel. Now, what is a link? What are links all about here inside the context of this panel anyway, inside WordPress? Well, you may have heard of blog rolls, especially on WordPress blogs. That's exactly what it is. And essentially all a blog roll is a list of links. Now, let's say for example, your blog is going to be about cooking. Maybe you want to have some links that are going to connect up to other related websites that perhaps provide free recipes or cooking tips or something like this, right? So that's really the idea. Now, just like we have a default post created for us inside our default installation of WordPress, we also have some default links, and we can see all of those links inside this Edit Links panel. There's all kinds of them in there. So we have the name of the link, and again, when I hover over top of this fella, we have Edit and we have Delete appearing there. We have the URL for that particular link. We can set up categories for our links, and the default category is called blog roll, hence the name blog roll. We have a visibility, and we also have a rating setting that we can use as well. Now let me show you this. I'm going to take this first guy here, development blog, and I'm going to click on Edit. Just hover over top of that guy and then click on Edit, and that'll bring you into this Edit Link screen where I can go and make changes to this particular link. For example, maybe I decide I want to change this link's name, or I want to change the URL, the web address that this particular link points to, right? And these links, by the way, can show up inside the sidebar of your blog if you want. Now, anyway, that's the idea there. At any point, you can go back to your edit screen just by clicking on edit there over on the left-hand side. That takes us back to where we started. The other thing that I can do is I could add in a new link if I wanted to. I'll go ahead and do that. I'll click on add new, and that'll bring us into a screen very similar to the screen that you and I were just in just a moment ago, but now instead of editing a link, I'm now adding in a whole new link. And once again, what I would do is I would add in a name here, add in the web address for the link. I can insert a description if I want, set a category for that particular link. There's a few other options down here as well. We can set up what's referred to as the target for the link. If you ever clicked on a link inside a web browser and it opens up inside a new browser window or a new browser tab, well, that's what _blank does. And we have a few other options here as well. We have top, current window or tab with no frames, or none, which is the same window, same browser window or tab. So we can set up those options there. And then once our new link is created, we'd go ahead and click on add link. Anyway, you can mess around with this if you want. I'm just kind of giving you the 5-cent tour here. The other thing that we can do as well is we can add in additional link categories if we wish. And you'll see here we have link categories over on the left-hand side. Once again, the default category is called blog roll, but I can add in as many categories as I want just by using this screen here. Link category name, and then go on and insert a description there if I want, and so on. And then click on Add Category. So again, I'm just kind of giving you the lay of the land here. If you want to mess around with this a little bit, if you want to pause the video and experiment with this a little bit, go right ahead. And if you make a mistake, if you goof up, well, you can always delete your links and you can always delete your categories. So there's no worries about doing any kind of permanent damage here. Okay, let's continue our tour down the left-hand menu. So next up we have pages. Go ahead and open up the pages category. Now, I want to kind of take a second and explain exactly what pages are. Imagine this. In WordPress land, we have two things. We have posts and we have pages. Now, how it works is posts get written into what's referred to as the loop in WordPress, and that's sort of the chronological order of all of your posts. And maybe once a day or perhaps even once a week or whatever your posting frequency is going to be, you'd come in, you'd create a new post, and that would get added into your blog, right? People can comment on them and you can comment back and all that good stuff, right? Now, where pages come in is pages are similar to posts, but they're static. Now, the default page that we get here, you can see, is called About, and that's a great example of a page here in WordPress. So it's going to be a static page that is not a part of the sort of the rolling chronology of your blog, if that makes sense. It's sort of a standalone static page. You can have as many pages as you want as well. So we could have About, and we could have a contact page, and we could have maybe a testimonials page, and so on. That's really the idea. And they would not be a part of the WordPress loop, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. And, you know, as always, if it doesn't, sit tight, and we'll get into working with this more and more as we work our way along. The idea here is I've clicked on pages. That, of course, has brought me into the edit category, and of course, there's my default about page. So I'm going to get a list here eventually when I start adding on more pages. I'm going to get a list of all of my pages, who created them, how many comments are on that page, if I do indeed allow comments on my static pages, and then when the file or the actual page was created. And then finally the status. It's currently published, meaning it's live on the blog right now, right? But let me show you this. I'm going to hover once again over top of About there. And of course, you can see we get these text links showing up. Edit, quick edit, trash it, or delete it, or we can view it. Now I'm going to click on Edit. And that brings us into this Edit Page View. So I can come in here and I can change the title of my page. Here's the default content for the About page. This is an example of a WordPress page, and so on there. You can scroll down and you'll find more options. We have custom fields here, and here's where I can allow comments and allow trackbacks and pingbacks if I want. And then finally up at the top here, I can update this guy if I want. Further, you can also see that it's currently published. That's the current status, and the visibility is it's public, so everybody can see it. What I could do at this point is I can go and create new pages as well if I want. So rather than editing an existing page, I can go and create a brand new blank page if I want. And I can do that just by clicking on Add New here over in the left-hand menu. That'll bring me into this Add New Page screen, which is pretty much identical to what you and I just saw. So I can add in the title for my page, the content for my page in this content area. Now, what kind of content can you put on a page? Pretty much anything you want. Text, graphics, video files, really whatever you have. You can see there's our custom fields and our discussion options, and then finally up towards the top, I could save this guy as a draft. I can preview him. I can set his status and his visibility, and I can set some publishing options, or I could go right ahead and publish him. So very similar to working with a post, but it's actually a static page that we're working on here. And again, if it's not really making sense, just sit tight, and you and I will be building a lot of pages together, so you'll see exactly how this works. Let's take a quick look at the comments screen. So go ahead and click on comments there on the left-hand side. And of course, don't forget, we have a default comment inserted into our blog just so we have something to look at. But this edit comments screen, or this edit comments interface, is going to allow us to work with all of the comments that you're going to wind up getting in your various posts throughout your blog. So at the top here, I'm going to get sort of a review here: pending, approved, spam, and trash. And I can navigate to, for example, all of my approved comments or all of my pending comments or any comments I've marked as spam. What I can also do is I can see, of course, in this main area, the comments that I currently have on my blog. And of course, there's only one at this point. Created by Mr. WordPress. Here's the date that it was submitted on and the time as well. We get a preview of this comment, and then below that we can unapprove this comment. We can reply to it. We can use the quick edit function or the edit function, mark it as spam, or of course we can trash it as well if we want. And the other nice thing as well is we can see this comment is in response to our post called Hello World, and that's our default post. And there's only one comment on that particular post, so we know which comments are associated with which posts. And again, in the real world, you're going to have a nice long page full of comments. Hopefully, if you're producing some good content and people want to talk about it and they want to comment on it, and you'll be able to come in here, come into this screen and moderate all of your comments, reply to your comments, get rid of the spam, trash some inappropriate comments, and so on. So a nice, easy screen to work with. Okay, now, next up, I'd love to show you probably my favorite category here in the WordPress backend, and that is the appearance category. Go ahead and look for appearance on the left-hand side there. Go ahead and click on appearance to not only expand that menu on the left, but head into your manage themes screen here in the backend. And that's the first item that we have underneath the appearance menu. Now, what the heck is appearance going to do for you, this appearance category? Well, probably the reason why it's my most favorite category is it really helps you control the look and feel of your blog. You won't be creating content here. You won't be creating posts and static pages and things like this, but what you'll be doing is you'll be controlling the look and feel of your blog, if that makes sense. As previously mentioned, you're going to come into this first menu item here, themes, and that'll bring you into this screen here. What the heck is a WordPress theme? Really, what a WordPress theme is simply a collection of PHP files that are all under the control of CSS rules. Now, that's kind of a mouthful. Let me try and explain that to you in plain English. Well, our blog is going to be driven by PHP files, and if you don't know much about PHP, don't worry about it. And then we can use cascading style sheets or CSS to help us control the look and feel of those PHP files and thus the resulting look and feel of our blog, if that makes sense for you. Now, what we have here when we have a fresh installation of WordPress is we get two themes by default. We have this current theme here at the top, and my current theme here is the WordPress default 1.6. There's the author's name there, Michael. And then a little bit of information here. The default WordPress theme is based on the famous Kubrick theme. I usually just refer to this theme as Kubrick itself. We can also see where these files are located inside the folder structure or the file structure for our blog. Now, below that, we also have any available themes that we have installed along with our WordPress installation. So the second theme that we get here is the WordPress Classic 1.5 theme by a fella named Dave there. And then we have the original WordPress theme that graced versions 1.2 and prior. So there you go. Now, again, you're just going to get these two default themes. But what we can do is we can always change the theme that's driving our blog, and we can even go and search for more themes. Now, what I'll do here up at the top, for the moment anyway, is I'm going to go ahead and click on Add New, and that brings me into this Install Themes screen here. And what we can do is we could search for a theme if we know the name of the theme there, or what I could do is I could use some of these feature filters. For example, I could look for black themes, or maybe black themes that also have purple in them, that are also two-column, that also have sticky posts, for example. And on. I can go all the way through all these different options, right? In any regard, I'm really just kind of giving you a very brief overview, sort of a quick tour of this themes category or this themes menu item here in the back end of WordPress. The next area of the administration interface that I want to show you is the widgets screen. So underneath appearance there on the left, go ahead and click on widgets. Now, what the heck is a widget? Well, let me try and explain this here. What we have here, I'm just going to scroll over to the right a little bit here, is we have on the far right, we have sidebar 1, and right now sidebar 1 is empty. And we'll get into customizing this, of course, a little bit later on. And then on the left-hand side, we have available widgets, and it says drag widgets from here to a sidebar on the right to activate them, drag widgets back here to deactivate them, and delete their settings. Now, that doesn't really tell you a whole lot here, but let's kind of scroll down and take a look. We have an archives widget, a monthly archive of your blog's posts, calendar, a calendar of your blog posts, categories, a list or drop down of categories, links, your blog role, and so on. Meta, pages, recent comments, recent posts, RSS, and so on and so on and so on, right? All the way down. You can scroll down this list and take a look at what we have here, right? But what do they actually do? Well, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to scroll back to the top here, and I'm just going to flip over to my, sort of the front end of my blog, if you will. And I'm just going to scroll down a little bit here, and on the right-hand side of the live blog, we have our sidebar. And inside the sidebar, you can see we have pages, we have archives, we have categories, we have the blog role links. We've just talked about all this not too long ago, right? So these guys are all sitting inside this sidebar. Well, you can think of these guys as little modules. Each of these items here, the meta, the blog role, the categories, and so on, are all widgets. They're all sort of independent modules. They're independent of one another. And what I can do in the backend, the admin backend, is I can go and customize that if I want. Maybe I want to have a calendar up at the top of the sidebar, followed by categories, followed by that blog role list of links, and so on, right? So that's really what widgets are all about. And you can get into customizing them, and you can get into installing additional widgets and doing all kinds of cool things. It's a really neat way to sort of expand your blog and make it look unique. Probably my favorite widget out of all of these guys is the text, using arbitrary text or HTML. So in other words, I could design something in Dreamweaver, for example, and then select all the code and then paste it into my text widget and have it show up over on the front end or the live side of my blog over inside the sidebar. It's pretty cool stuff. The only other thing I want to show you inside this widget screen is all the way down at the bottom we have inactive widgets. We have this little inactive widgets area. Drag widgets here to remove them from the sidebar, but keep their settings. So in other words, if I want to hang on to the settings that I've applied to a sidebar widget, I can drop them in here, and that saves the settings, but it basically deactivates it as well. So anyway, there's kind of a basic idea anyway of how the widget screen works. I love this next part of the WordPress admin interface. We actually have a code editor built right into the interface. So if you're used to working with Dreamweaver, for example, well, you can still work with Dreamweaver whenever you're customizing WordPress, but you can also make use of the built-in editor. So underneath appearance, go ahead and click on editor, and that'll pop open this code editor inside the admin interface. All right, here we are. Edit themes. Now, this might seem like a bit much at first glance, but let me try and explain all this first. Try and ignore all of this stuff right in the middle just for a moment. And let me bring your eyes over to the right-hand side of the screen. Here we have theme files. And what we'll see here is a list of PHP files. So there's our 404 template. That's our 404 error page, by the way. Archives, comments, footer, header, image attachment template, and so on and so on and so on, all the way down the list. So in other words, all of the files that make up the current theme, remember it's that default theme that we're currently working with, these are all of the PHP files that make up the current theme, right? And then if I scroll down a little bit further, I'll also see some styles. So we have two style sheets here, rtl.css and style.css as well. So what we can do inside this editor, let's say for example I want to go and make a change to my header file. And I'll explain exactly how all of these documents, all of these different PHP files, all sort of fit together in just a little while when we start customizing our own theme. But suffice it to say, for now, this is how the editor works. I would click on the file that I want to edit. So I'm going to go after header.php, this guy right here. Just single click on him. That's all there is to it. And what that does is that loads header.php into the main area, the main window inside this edit themes screen. So now if I know my code, I can come in here and I can make some changes. Maybe I want to make some adjustments or apply some different CSS rules, this sort of thing, remove some hyperlinks or add in some other content. I could do so here inside this editor window. And then once I'm finished, all I need to do is click on Update File. That's really all there is to it. It's pretty slick stuff. You could even take this code that we see inside this main window here. I could select all this code if I wanted to, copy it, paste it into Dreamweaver, use Dreamweaver's design view to design my layout visually, and then select all the Dreamweaver background code, come back here, paste, and then update my theme from there. That's another way to work, right? But again, we'll get into all this stuff as we go along. Let me show you one more example here. I'm going to go after my style sheet, so style.css. Go ahead and click on that fella. And again, this is the style sheet for our current theme, the theme that's being used to drive the look and feel of our current blog layout, right? So here I can see the theme name is the WordPress default there up at the top. Don't forget it's based on that Kubrick theme, right? And what I can do at this point is I could scroll down, and if I know my CSS code, I can come in here and I can add additional properties or change some values or do whatever it is that I want to do to customize my blog and customize my theme. And then of course, once I'm finished, down at the bottom, I simply click on Update File. Hopefully all good there. I hope it all makes sense. I hope it isn't too overwhelming. Just know that you do have this editor built into the admin backend of your blog, and you can make use of it if you want. But again, if it's too much for you, if you don't like using code too much, you can always use Dreamweaver to help you out as well. Earlier, we had a look at the widgets category, and I was explaining that you can customize your widgets. You can even add in extra widgets to really customize the look of your blog. Well, I want to take a moment and very briefly anyway, introduce you to the idea of WordPress plugins. Now, what a plugin is like an add-on or like an extra that you can add on to your blog. And it really, if you can imagine it, there's someone who's created a WordPress plugin to do it, if you follow what I mean. Let's say, for example, you have a Flickr account and you want to include some photos from your Flickr account on your WordPress blog. Well, lots of people have created their own WordPress plugins to do exactly that. Or let's say, for example, you want to include some video from YouTube on your WordPress blog. Well, someone's created a plugin to do that as well. So again, if you can think it up, I'll betcha that someone has figured out how to do it with WordPress. And plugins really are what have set WordPress apart from some of the other blogging tools that are available online. This idea, this ability to expand and customize your blog to suit your own tastes is really what makes WordPress so cool. Okay, so let me show you the administration panel for handling your plugins, and later on we'll get into installing some plugins and activating them and getting them to work on our blog. So again, I'm just kind of giving you the lay of the land here. So at this point, point, let's go ahead and click on Plugins over on the left-hand side, inside the menu there on the left, of course. And that'll bring us into our plugins screen, into the installed view anyway. And we have two plugins that have been added to our WordPress blog by default. We have one called Akismet, and what it will do is it will check your comments against the Akismet web service to see if they look like spam or not. This is a great way to keep spam out of your comments and off of your blog, so I would highly recommend that you use this guy. We'll get into working with him in a little while. And then the other guy that we have is kind of a fun plugin called Hello Dolly. This is not just a plugin. It symbolizes the hope and enthusiasm of an entire generation, summed up in two words sung most famously by Louis Armstrong, Hello Dolly. So when activated, when this plugin is activated, you will randomly see a lyric from Hello Dolly in the upper right of your admin screen on every page. So just a fun plugin that you can include inside your WordPress blog anyway, if you want. So this is the screen where we would see all of our installed plugins, and from this screen what we can do is we can activate the plugins. So we might have a plugin installed that isn't actually activated or being used just yet. So you can see both of my plugins still need to be activated. I can also edit my plugins from this view if I want, and I can also delete them if I want as well. Now, the other thing that I can do is I can go and add in a new plugin, and we're going to be adding in a lot of plugins here during our time together. I'm going to go ahead and click on Add New just to show you this screen here. So I go ahead and click on Add New, and that brings me to this screen where I can go and search for additional plugins. Let's say, for example, I'm looking for a plugin that's going to help me out with some search engine optimization. So I might type that into this search field here. I could type in search engine optimization or SEO and then click on search plugins, and I'd be given back a results page, right? Or what I could do is down towards the bottom is I could use this tag cloud to go and browse through some of the different available plugins. For example, maybe I want to look for some CSS plugins or some graphic related plugins or plugins related to my pages or posts and so on, right? But as I say, we're going to get into working with plugins in quite a large capacity in just a little while. Last but not least, we also have a plugin editor down underneath the plugins menu on the left-hand side where you can actually come in and edit the code for your plugin. Now, sometimes you need to do that if you need to kind of hack apart one of your plugins or get a plugin to do something that you want it to do, and you have to kind of customize it a little bit. But honestly, I really don't mess around with this too much myself, but I do know that it's there if I have to use it. Let's have a quick look at the users category and also the tools category. So down on the left-hand side, I'm going to go ahead and click on users. And that, of course, is going to open up the users category, the users screen. This is the user account that you and I set up when we first installed WordPress not too long ago. Now, what's very cool about this is you might be in a situation where you're the only person who's going to be adding content to your blog, and that's just fine. However, what you can start doing is you can start adding on additional users. For example, maybe coworkers or maybe guest authors or, things like this. You can come in here and you can create a new user account for those other people. And if you want to do so, you could either click on the Add New button up at the top of the interface, or what you could do is you could click on Add New down on the left-hand side if you wanted to as well. And of course, all of your new users are going to show up inside this screen here. The username and their graphic there, their gravatar as it's called. You can go and edit those users if you want. There's their name and their email address, and also their role and their number of posts as well. But what I'm going to do here is I'll just show you quickly this Add New screen. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Add New, and we can give them a username here, first name and last name, their email address, their URL to their website, and then also their password, which we have to insert twice, and then down towards the bottom here, their roles. So they can be a subscriber, they can be an administrator, so they have full privileges on the site, editor, author, or contributor. So if you want to know more about this, you can read up on it, but I'm just kind of giving you the quick down and dirty here, and then of course you'd click on Add User if you want. So I hope that all makes sense. Let's take a quick look at the Tools category as well. So I'm just going to collapse down Users, and then I'll click on Tools here over on the left-hand side. That opens up the Tools category. Now, right away it brings me into this Tools screen, and we have two items here. Turbo to speed up WordPress, and then we also have Press This, which is what's referred to as a bookmarklet, or a small application that runs inside your browser, and it's going to let you grab little bits and pieces of different web pages as you're surfing around. You can make use of these two fellas if you want, and you can read up on them if you want, but what I really wanted to show you is the import, the export, and the upgrade options. So I'm going to click on import. Now what you can do with the import screen is if you have posts or other content on other blogging systems, you can use this screen to go and grab that content and bring it into your current installation of WordPress. Very cool stuff. So maybe, for example, you're running a WordPress blog somewhere else and you want to go and grab all of your old posts and pages and everything that you created over on that other blog. Well, you can go and pull them into your new blog if you wanted to, right? Now, in addition to that, the other thing that you can do is you can export. Let's take a quick look here. So if you want to create a backup, perhaps, of your WordPress blog, maybe once a week or maybe once every few days, you want to create a backup of your blog, not a bad idea. This is one way to do it, right? However, you can get plugins that'll create automatic backups as well. This is just one option here for you. So once again, I'm not going to go through all kinds of detail, but you can read through this if you want, and you can go ahead and create a backup of your comments and your posts and all the rest of it, and then use the import option to pull everything back into a WordPress installation if you wish. Finally, we have upgrade down underneath tools there. You can go ahead and click on that. And you may have to upgrade to the latest version of WordPress. It's always a good idea to keep the latest version of WordPress installed. So you might need to, every once in a while, come in here and check to see if you need to upgrade your WordPress account, or oftentimes you'll see a notification on your dashboard that you should be upgrading to the latest version of WordPress. But in any regard, there you go. There's your users and your tools. I wanted to at least familiarize you with those two areas of the admin interface. There's one more area of the admin interface that I want to show you here, and then we'll get rocking and rolling with actually creating stuff and customizing stuff here inside WordPress. The last category that I want to show you is the settings category, the very last menu item down on the left-hand side. Go ahead and pop that guy open. Now, the settings drop-down menu has the most number of sub-items here, and I'm not going to go through every single area here, but maybe I'll just kind of familiarize yourself with a few things that we can do here. So when I click on settings, it brings me into general settings, and that's going to allow me to set general options for my overall blog. The blog title, the tagline, the URL for the blog, the email address, and so on and so on. Now, as we get customizing WordPress, by the way, we'll come into some of these subcategories and make some changes here. So there's your general category anyway. You can get into the writing category as well, and you can start to customize how creating new posts is actually handled and how your blog posts are actually read underneath the reading settings category. And we'll get into customizing some of this stuff. And discussion and media and something called permalinks and so on. So you can explore through these here. I think I'm pretty much going to leave it at that because I don't want to completely inundate you with too much of an interface tour here, but hopefully you find most of this pretty straightforward. So with all of this now out of the way, now that you're feeling a little bit more comfortable inside the interface here, let's actually start talking about creating stuff inside WordPress.